Hi there, this is Jeanette Comerford for Whimsy Stamps, and today's video features a slider card. Whimsy just released a bunch of new products, and one of them is a die set that is called Slip and Slide, and it has different dies to create these slider cards. I also used a new image called Hugs and Fishes for my card. So one of the other things I pulled out was Whimsy's nested rectangle set. So I'm using the larger die, and this is the slider die I'm going to be using. I also stamped it out a few times and then stamped just the fish and a mask for the fish. And the reason I'd stamped it the whole sort of stamp 2 times was because I thought I needed a bottom layer and a top layer. And as I sort of went through making my slider card, because this is the first time I've ever made one, I sort of realized you don't need that bottom layer, but that's the reasoning behind why there's 2 layers there. So I cut them both out. I then cut out the mask, and the layer that you see there that I've already sponged was going to serve as my bottom layer because I didn't mind if I was coloring over all the fish. But this top layer, I did want to mask the fish so that I could color it later. I'm using Distress inks, but this is Neenah cardstock because I do want to color my images with Copic markers. Here you just see I'm using a bone folder here just to press down the edges of the mask so that it doesn't sort of move upwards or lift up a little bit as I'm sponging. I find sometimes if it's a teeny area, it sometimes lifts up when you're sponging, so by just pressing down with that bone folder, you get more success. Here I'm using tumbled glass on the top, sponging it on. I'm not being really super careful like I usually am about getting a really soft blend or building it up, because I am going to be distressing this with some water. I'm going to move on now to some Twisted Citron, blend that into the tumbled glass. I really like using this Twisted Citron in my ocean scenes. I like that sort of pop of green that it gives. So I'm just blending back and forth, making sure that between the 2 colors there's no sort of line. Moving to a darker blue color, I guess for the 3rd quadrant, I guess. I kind of colored it in 4 different sort of areas, so getting deeper and darker as I move downwards. And then the final color is Blueprint Sketch. It's a really sort of deep, almost purpley blue, I guess, and I really like using that for the bottom part of my ocean scenes. I'm also trying to make sure that it matches my bottom portion. At this point I thought I was going to be really needing those two portions. So now I'm taking my Distress sprayer, and because this is Neenah cardstock, I am spraying it very, very lightly and not leaving the water on for very long at all. I don't want to ruin the paper at all. It is not watercolor paper, so I was pretty lucky with how it turned out. The reason I was using the Neenah cardstock was because I wanted to color with Copic markers. So that's the reasoning behind sort of using the Neenah cardstock versus using proper watercolor paper. But I did find, with a little care, it looked really nice. So now I'm just going to color the fish. I have listed all the marker colors that I used for the fish at the top. The first 3 are what I used to color sort of the face and the gills, I guess, of the fish. So just using those 3 colors, working with my light, then blending with my medium, and then dark. That's what I used. It's a pretty easy image to color, pretty forgiving. You could do it multicolor. You could do so many different things with this fish. I'm going to use those sort of same colors for the gills, but I did start with the darker color this time and then just blended out with the lighter color just because it was a small area and I really didn't want to get any bleeding since I had already sponged in all the color for the background. And once I blended it out, I sort of went back in a little bit and then started using the darker colors that were listed, so the last two colors there, for the body of the fish. And you'll see I'll extend that into the gills a little bit and into the mouth just to give it a little bit more definition. To make the eyes pop, I did go in with some BG11, BG10, and then added a little bit of a white highlight with a Sharpie poster paint pen. And I didn't want to go over the Distress inks with my Copic markers, so I used a Prismacolor pencil to color in the greenery. So here's the second fish. It was colored in the exact same way but using different colors, and you can see those markers on the screen right now. And I just had to decide exactly where I wanted to put the slider, and I made sure not to cut out any portion of that fish, so I positioned it just below the fish, and I'm going to put some post-it tape to hold it in place and run it through my Big Shot. So it was kind of here at this point where I realized that I didn't have to create that bottom portion because I had the little insert here. So you can just sort of glue that on any piece of cardstock. You don't have to create an exact duplicate like I did. So since I had it, I used it, just added a little bit of glue to it and popped it into place. So I'm putting some foam adhesive tape to the front part, or the back of the front part for the slider. You do need this to be raised so that the slider can sort of move freely. I'm going to die cut those circles. They come with the set, and that's what's going to serve as the slider. I'm positioning it sort of in the middle of the slot for the slider, and I'm using a small rectangular piece of foam tape, adhering that to the top of the slider, and then I'll adhere the fish right on top of that. And so now my little fish can slide back and forth on my card. I hope you've enjoyed watching me create this slider card using some of the new products from Whimsy's July release. Thank you so much for watching. A full list of supplies and links can be found below this video on YouTube or on my blog.